Dr. Hinna, glad to have you with us today.
Good evening. I'm honored to be with you. Thank you.
Dr. Hinna, Trump claims that Venezuela stole American oil. How did you follow this strange statement? And who is stealing from whom today?
Well, this is a statement out of you cannot explain how could the president of the United States say that Venezuela is stealing the American oil. Venezuela is pumping its own oil from the ground, and Venezuela is have the right to export its oil and get and utilize its resources to improve its economy. The oil is about $25 billion a year income to Venezuela, and Venezuela does not fall into the fold of the U.S. interest in the Caribbean or in Latin America, and the United States of America wants to topple the regime and bring in a regime that is in support of American policies to bring the American oil companies back into Venezuela to operate and produce the oil and deliver it to the U.S. At lower prices or at the best interest of the U.S. Now, remember, the Venezuela have the heavy oil. Only 3 places in the world that are reliant suppliers for heavy oil that the U.S. refineries need to produce gasoline. The heavy oil comes from Canada, is Venezuela, and Russia. Venezuela being the largest reserve in the world in the heavy oil, and the U.S. needs that, and Russia is the second largest, and Canada is the third largest. So now they don't get from Russia, they don't get from Venezuela. Canada will be the only source, and that is not really merely enough. The U.S. oil is not heavy oil. So some of it comes from Louisiana, but not a lot. So the U.S. does want Venezuela for its heavy oil and for its strategic geographic location, because Venezuela is partnering with Russia and China. Russia and China are now arch enemies, not arch enemies, adversaries to the U.S. interest in the world.
Washington is trying to escalate its aggression against South American countries under flimsy pretext, the most prominent being the fight against drugs. Does fighting drugs require deploying aircraft carriers and warships, or is there another objective?
You cannot just launch war against other countries out of the blue without a reason. So you always have to create a reason. If you wanted to, if you remember in Iraq, they said weapons of mass destruction, and the weapon of mass destruction was never there. They knew it wasn't there. They just wanted Iraq to have a foothold to control the Middle East. So now we have the story of narcotics. It does not need, like you said, that kind of force to fight a gang of drug smugglers. And if there is any drug smugglers, you can take them out without this kind of force. So it's really a pretext. It is the U.S. is using this to generate interest in the public and to legitimize its attack on Venezuela. The U.S. wants to topple the government of Maduro because the government of Maduro has aligned itself with Russia and China, as we said earlier. And the U.S. is looking at this situation in a global context. They're losing the war in Ukraine, so Russia is moving forward. They have not been able to control China in any way, whether it is in the China Sea or whether it is in its economic power. And they want to consolidate their power on Latin America, and Venezuela is in the way. So they have to remove Venezuela from the picture so they can consolidate slowly power over Latin America.
American arrogance,
The
excuse
drug
me,
cartel is not the smuggling of drugs is just the excuse that you have to use to attack, to launch the campaign, a military campaign against Venezuela. It's just an excuse.
but American arrogance is repeated from Trump to his Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, as you know, against the countries of South America. Who will stop this arrogance, and can these countries withstand Washington? Where do you think things are headed?
I would think it is very possible that the U.S. will launch an airstrike on Venezuela. I don't think there will be a ground attack on Venezuela. There will be a coordination, very much like the plan that was on Iran. They hit from the air, and they will have people on the ground that will move in and topple the government from within. Remember, Venezuela, 20% of the population of Venezuela are in the opposition. They are not in line with the government. 80% or so support the government, even though at different levels. Some are core, some are sympathizers. Most of the Venezuelans will fight for their country should the country be attacked, like we saw in Iran. However, 20% is a lot of people, and you can recruit tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans from this 20% to launch a war or a coup inside the country to topple the government. Remember when the Nobel Peace Prize was given to the opposition leader of Venezuela, that was very clear that there is a game to be played here, that they don't give these Nobel Prize awards to just anybody. They do it with the understanding for political reasons. It's politicized. They give it to people to serve a specific role in the plan for the Western dominance over the world. I do believe that if a war erupts in Venezuela, it will not lead to the toppling of the government. It will be a war that the U.S. will start and will end up costing a lot of money, and the U.S. will not benefit from this war, especially that the population in Latin America does not support this war. Plus, the governments of Latin America do not support this war. You might find one or two governments that will probably support, but the population would not. Now, crippling the economy is a tool that the U.S. uses. They used it in Syria and it worked. You know, when you cripple the economy and the people at the end of the day will blame their governments for the poverty, then they will rebel against the government. So in Venezuela, you know, sanctioning in the oil exports, doing an embargo on Venezuela will definitely put a pressure on the economy, and it will weaken its resort and make the people suffer, and the people will blame the government, and the U.S. will think, hopefully, will they end up toppling the government and install one that is more aligned with the U.S. policies in the world. So really, this is not about, remember, in this world, there is no conscience and no justice. People are looking for their interest at any cost. Sometimes you collect what you need to collect on a river of blood, and we have seen it happen around the globe. We've seen it in Gaza. The whole world is watching while an entire population is being disseminated in the most horrific way ever. And Israel is still standing, and people are still trading with the state of Israel around the globe. Of course, there's a lot of global opposition to that. However, but in everyday life, nothing have changed. So the U.S. need to change with time. The United States of America in the past have shown its power, exerted its military influence to advance its strategic interests. However, this method does not work today. We have a different kind and example of a new way of advancing the interest of superpowers. When superpower continue to use the military force to advance its strategy, at this time it will accelerate its fall from grace. We do not want to see that the U.S. falling from grace, so it's not really a good idea for the United States to exert its power to change regimes. This thing does not work in today's world.
Thank you so much, the political
we have an
and
example.
researcher, Dr. Hinda Khalil. Thank you so much for your time.